Binge the full week ad-free over at patreon.com/inspired disorder.
What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
The Last Blockbuster, a new documentary out now on Netflix. It's a fun documentary for a lot of reasons. It chronicles the rise and fall of Blockbuster, but also there's a lot of celebrities and people telling their stories of renting movies, their nostalgia of renting movies or working at Blockbuster. And there's still but there's still kind of that it's a very hipstery thing to kind of be into the idea of going to a rental place. Now, for myself, I loved renting movies. I mean, it was kind of watching this did bring back a lot of those memories of renting movies. I remember first renting movies at a grocery store. When I was really young, they had like a very small collection of movies that you could rent just like at an end cap, and they had, different. I remember watching, I think rented Spaceballs was one of those first ones. But then there's a lot, as I got older, started going to actual video stores. Video Hut was one that I used to ride my bike to with my friend, and we play Street Fighter or Double Dragon, Street Fighter, maybe Street Fighter 2, because they had that arcade game in there. We'd ride our bikes to that one. Rented movies every once in a while, but primarily we would go there to play the video games. And then as I'd get a little bit older, like my preteens and teens, my mom would go out of town to go visit her boyfriend who lived out of town. So my friend would come over to my house and we'd have the house to ourselves. We were two nerd kids. We weren't having parties or anything like that. It was just us. But we had the house to ourselves, and we would always stock up. We would go before my mom left. We would stock up. We would go rent a bunch of movies, usually horror movies, which I don't really remember. We played a lot of PlayStation as well. And then junk food, and we would just the whole weekend just watch shitty action movies, a lot of Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, and eating a lot of really bad junk food. Yeah, so this movie, the interesting thing, this documentary also follows Sandy Harding, who is the mother of Blockbuster mom, I guess she calls herself, or Blockbuster grandma. Because she runs the Last Blockbuster in Bend, Oregon, which I don't even know if it's still open. But yeah, a lot of this movie, some of this documentary kind of shows that there were other Blockbuster stores still open, but it was like about to go down, and then this one. So it's kind of telling the story of Sandy and how all of the members of her family have worked at this Blockbuster. This family, pretty much a mom and pop video store, but just, owned by the Blockbuster Corporation, or at least they licensed the name from DirecTV, who owns Blockbuster. So it focuses a little bit on that and how, the people in that area love that Blockbuster and how they love going in there and renting movies. And then it also has the rise and fall story of Blockbuster, which was interesting as well, how it started, how they were able to kind of restructure how studios could help make money with this whole movie rental thing, because VHS cassettes apparently cost a lot of money. They cost like $100. So to rent a cassette or to buy a cassette and rent it out was not very cost effective until they did a revenue share with the studios, and then they realized that they can make a ton of money doing that rev share. So interesting how Blockbuster in a lot of ways contributed to the overall market of movie rental. Like they really figured out, it's almost like McDonald's, how they figured out how to make fast food really efficient. And that's what set them apart, was being able to get food out super fast. And Blockbuster did a very similar thing, and they were able to kind of churn out new Blockbusters. There was one stat in the documentary where they said like a new Blockbuster was opening every 7 hours or whatever. which is kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy how popular Blockbuster was. Um, and then it basically, a lot of it was like, a lot of people think it was Netflix that was the death of Blockbuster, but it was a lot of bad management, really, which isn't that surprising, because Blockbuster was owned by a corporation that owned a bunch of other things. They were basically using the Blockbuster name to rack up a bunch of debt, to kind of finance other things that they were working on. And then when the financial crisis happened, uh, they were just starting to turn around, like Blockbuster, which I remember like in early 2000s, because Netflix, I don't think Netflix had streaming yet, or they was very early in streaming, but they were doing DVDs by mail. And Blockbuster came out with they got rid of their late fees, which apparently destroyed like 2/3 of their business. But then they had a mail-in business, DVDs by mail, and then they also had, or video games too. That was another thing that Blockbuster offered that Netflix didn't, was video games. But yeah, movies by mail, and then they had a streaming service, which was, I would imagine, fairly new. But they didn't have the capital to keep it going. So when the financial crisis hit in '08, they all fell apart. Which I worked at a Blockbuster. Uh, I was I got a job out of high school working at a movie theater, and I needed to pay some medical bills because we don't have universal health care in this country, and I didn't have health insurance at the time. So I had quite a bit of medical bills from a kidney stone, and I needed to pick up a second job, and I picked up a second job at Blockbuster, which was pretty much the perfect job, especially at a high school. Easiest job to do. Free rentals. I loved movies. They were super flexible because I worked at the movie theater, so I was able to. It really worked well, and I was working two jobs, and I was going to night school for junior college, and it was a cool job. It was fun. I enjoyed the people I worked with. My supervisor was a big stoner. I did not smoke weed. But my supervisor and employees, they would smoke in the office all the time. Until one night when I was closing the store, as I did most of the time with my supervisor, and just as we were going to lock up the doors, two guys bursted through the doors wearing ski masks, holding guns. I was behind the counter checking in a PlayStation 2, I think, at the time, which, that's a $300-400 piece of equipment. Uh, Guy thought I was a supervisor because I was older, even though, I wasn't the supervisor. Put the gun to my head and told us to go to the office. And had my supervisor on the way back to the office. He realized that the supervisor was not me, and put him on his knees in front of the safe, put the gun to the back of his head while I was in the bathroom, kind of watching through the crack. And my supervisor was being stupid. He was kind of a bro dude, and he was, not willing to give the code to the safe, which is the dumbest thing ever, until the guy in the ski mask cocked the gun and put it to the back of his head, and then he opened it up. And then he put him in the bathroom with me, and we waited a few seconds after they left. We could hear them leave the office, and we wait a little bit, and then he ran out and saw their thing. Cops came, or the manager for the store came, and he called the owner. And the first thing the owner asked was, what did they take? Didn't give a shit about the safety of his employees at all. So from that point on, they eventually arrested the guy, and he went to court. I was living in San Diego at the time. I almost had to come back to like testify, even though like my story of what I remembered was different from what happened, so they didn't want to use me. Um, but yeah, once I found out that the owner of the store didn't give a shit, I started not giving a shit. So, I was hooking everybody up. But so I didn't really care when Blockbuster went under. But it was an awesome job. It was a lot of fun. I remember watching like rap battles. We would put like stuff on the TVs after closing while we were cleaning up. We would watch movies. It was a lot of fun. It was like the perfect second job to have, especially if you loved movies. In this documentary, there's a lot of people telling a lot of stories about their, experiences renting movies and working at video stores, working at Blockbuster. Um, but yeah, it was awesome, and it was also cool to like I would started my movie collection by getting the previously viewed VHS, which was kind of an awesome thing to be able to get these movies that I loved at a cheap cost. But an interesting movie. I can't see like Ron Funches in the documentary said that they should turn it into a dispensary that rents. That would be the perfect thing. If you wanted to keep like that kind of idea of renting DVDs and Blu-rays, like when I worked there, it was still VHS. DVDs were, I think we had a shelf of DVDs, but primarily it was VHS. And even then, like now, I don't even have a disc player. So even if I wanted to rent something, I have to do it digitally. But turning it into something like that, where you can go pick up some movies, go buy some weed, and get some snacks and stuff like that, seems like a perfect way to kind of keep that kind of idea of a mom and pop movie rental alive. But yeah, the last Blockbuster, it's on Netflix. I enjoyed it. It brought back a lot of memories, and it was interesting to kind of see what actually happened with the what actually sunk Blockbuster. Which, after seeing the management that it had, I wasn't surprised that the first thing that guy asked was what they took, because it really didn't seem like they understand the business that they're in. But it is what it is. The last Blockbuster on Netflix. Go get yourself some new cell phone service with $25 in credit when you sign up through my link, inspireddisorder.com/ting. Ting is amazing cell phone service where you only pay for what you use. Super low prices. Bring over your phone or buy a phone through them. But get yourself $25 in credit when you go through my link, inspireddisorder.com/ting. It's the same best coverage, same low rates, now with 3 coast-to-coast networks. inspireddisorder.com/ting. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on IGTV, YouTube, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Binge the full week ad-free over at patreon.com/inspireddisorder. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com and follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out.